Welcome to another podcast. With me today I have Mr. Oleksandr Merezkho, the head of the Ukrainian Parliament's Foreign Affairs Committee. Welcome.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a great pleasure and honor.
We are closing in on a second winter that is starting of war. Naturally, there are some speculations that the Russians have been holding back both their Iranian suicide drones, the Shaheeds, and cruise missiles and other weapons in order to build up a reserve to strike Ukrainian energy facilities. Do you think that Ukraine will be able to withstand this pressure, maybe with the help of new air defense systems that you have received in recent months?
Of course, we have apprehensions about the coming winter because we remember the previous winter, which was really harsh for us. But we survived, we went through this, and we learned how to survive. We learned how to be creative, to withstand Russian attacks and Russian pressure. And people got used. It's almost the second year of the full-scale war. And people in Ukraine, in Kiev, and other cities, we already got used how to survive. So we're prepared. We're prepared and we're more determined to continue our fight. Because Russians think that by using their missiles, by using drones, they can, and using this bombing, they can break the will of Ukrainians. But in reality, it has the opposite effect. Because Ukrainians become more angry and more determined to defend ourselves and to win the war. So we're prepared. Of course, we know that Russia has accumulated lots of drones, and they will be trying to make our life during this winter just intolerable. They will be continuing to commit the crime of genocide by deliberately targeting our power grid, our critical infrastructure. We know that. At the same time, luckily, our partners, our allies are also aware of this danger. And they have provided us with the necessary air defense system. Of course, we need more air defense because we're talking here not only about the capital, Kiev, but we also need air defense to defend other cities in Ukraine. And we need more such air defense systems. But luckily, our friends and allies, they understand it and they continue to support us.
Yes, when it comes to the air defense system, I think many people in the West forget just how geographically vast Ukraine is, that one or two systems is simply not enough. You need many to be able to protect the entire territory. If we look at diplomacy, we have consecutive Ramstein meetings. We had a NATO summit, of course, earlier this year, and we're already starting to slowly prepare for the next NATO summit. Do you think that military aid especially, but aid in general from the West, will continue, or are there any signals that you feel that maybe some leaders in the West are starting to be less determined than they were previously?
Well, I'm confident and I'm hopeful that the aid will continue for a very simple reason, and it was well explained by American President Joe Biden in his column in the newspaper and in his speeches. Because to support Ukraine for the United States is, as he put it, it's the best investment in world security and in security of the United States. That's why I'm sure that the aid will continue. But we can more talk about the quantity and quality of this aid. Because we need weaponry not only to defend ourselves, but also to regain to bring back under our control, to deoccupy our territories, including Crimea. And to do that, we need long-range missiles, we need ATACMS, we need F-16, because we need to have domination in our skies against Russian military aircraft. So, and we hope that this aid not only will continue, but will be bigger in terms of volume.
And when we look at diplomacy or international relations, of course, Ukraine has many allies in the West, but we should also remember that Russia has its own allies. Sometimes they are more apparent, sometimes they are acting a little bit more in the shadows, but it seems clear that they have received artillery shells and other things from North Korea. Probably a lot of the material that the North Koreans need to sustain come from China originally. Naturally, the suicide drones from Iran. And now lately we also see that Russia probably has had very close relations with Hamas, for example. Do you feel that there is this general trend of two blocks being built in the world, the Western allies who support Ukraine and this Eurasian alliance of states that is centered around Russia and China?
This is exactly what I've been recently talking about. The thing is that what we have right now, it's already global hybrid war between two blocks of the countries. On the one hand, we have countries, free world, and countries, democratic countries, with its leader, the United States, which is a leader, true leader of the free world. On the other hand, we have a whole coalition of authoritarian and totalitarian regimes. First of all, this coalition is around China as the biggest totalitarian country. Russia is a junior partner of China, which is turning into its vassal. And also we have other members of this coalition, like North Korea. We have also Cuban regime. We have Iran. And the thing is that these totalitarian and authoritarian regimes, they have their own solidarity between themselves. They support each other. They coordinate their efforts. And it's very dangerous. So we are facing the major conflict of the 21st century. And Ukraine and our struggle, our war for independence is only part of this global conflict. But we stand firm not only for our territorial integrity, we fight for our democratic values. And we're just at the forefront of this struggle. But we have to realize that against us is not only Russia. I always emphasize that it's not only a war of one country against the other, aggression of Russia against Ukraine. No, Russia is supported in different ways, economically, politically, diplomatically, propagandistically, by China, by North Korea, by Belarus, by Cuba, by Cuban regime, and of course by Iran.
Speaking about Belarus, you mentioned here, naturally in the first days and weeks of the war, the Russian armies, their military systems, whether it was armored vehicles or other weapons, they came flowing down from the north and going straight for Kiev. How has Ukraine's relations been with Belarus since this happened?
I'm professor of international law, and I know that in the context of the definition of aggression, Belarus is Russian accomplice. It's complicity in terms of act of aggression against Ukraine. At the same time, we know that Russia and Belarus, they form a union, a certain union, a state. They even use the term a state. And we don't recognize Lukashenko as a president of Belarus. He has usurped power in Belarus, and he's dictator. And Belarus is controlled by Russia. We even have discussion in the parliament to recognize Belarus as occupied by Russia territory or not. But the very fact that we are discussing this, it means how it's very telling how we perceive Belarus and regime in Belarus. So at present moment, Belarus is under Russian control, and it's accomplice of Russian crimes against Ukraine.
And it seems that one of the goals of the war, that after a Ukrainian victory, it should be for Russian troops to withdraw from other regions as well, from Transnistria and Moldova, for example, where they still have troops, or in Belarus. Is this something that you would agree, that this is something that Russia should not only withdraw from Ukraine, but also from other countries, and Georgia, for example?
I'm sure that the victory of Ukraine over Russia will inevitably have a positive effect for other countries. including Belarus. I'm sure that Belarusian regime of Lukashenko will fall. Will have to leave. Will be completely destroyed. The same situation about Transnistria. Russian troops will have to leave, and I'm sure that Moldova will restore its territorial integrity as a result of this. And I'm also sure that in Georgia there will be political changes leading to closer ties with the European Union. And the whole region, it will be, like a tide. Ukrainian victory will strengthen democracy in the whole region and will bring about positive changes in many countries in this region.
Also, there are some speculations about the Russian Federation itself. You mentioned here that you were thinking about classifying Belarus as an occupied territory. I think there was also an initiative in the Ukrainian parliament to recognize Ichkaria, or Chechnya as it's better known. There are some people in the West who say that a complete Russian loss in Ukraine could lead to internal instability, and since Russia is a nuclear power, it could lead to nuclear weapons ending up in the wrong hands, or any other type of chaos and warlord system, which we saw in China, for example, at the start of the 20th century. Is this something that you think people should be afraid about, or would maybe the world even be a more safe place if the Russian Federation would be broken down into smaller constituent parts?
First of all, I'm head of the group of members of parliament of the Verkhovna Rada, which is called, this group is called Free Ichkeria. So we strongly support, and Ukrainian parliament has already adopted a resolution in support of Ichkeria. We have recognized that Ichkeria is under Russian occupation, that Russia had committed a crime of genocide against Chechen people. So, and I'm working closely with representatives of the Chechen movement for national liberation. More and more members of parliament are in favor of decolonization of Russia, because we understand that by its very nature, Russia is a colonial, genocidal empire. And no country in the region, including Ukraine and other neighboring countries, we cannot be safe till this empire exists. That's why we are in favor of decolonization. We're already using this term, and we're already talking about decolonization of Russia. At the same time, I believe that the process of Russia's disintegration is natural and objective process, and the history will repeat itself. The West, the United States, had the same concerns about the disintegration of the Soviet Union. But look, yes, absolutely. This is what comes to mind. Chicken Kiev speech by President Bush Sr. But nothing bad happened, and we should be prepared. We should have strategy regarding disintegration and decolonization of Russia. And the West should have this strategy because it's an inevitable process. If you look from historical perspective, you will notice that the whole 20th century and 21st century has been the century of disintegration of Russian empire. It was diminishing. Despite the agony, despite these desperate attempts to restore Russian empire, it's inevitable for this empire to disintegrate. That's why we shouldn't be afraid of this, but we should be prepared, and we should think about what should we do when in the place of Russia will emerge a number of different states, national states. And we should think about this right now.
Well, during the interwar era, of course, the Polish leader, Józef Piłsudski, had his idea of the Prometheus project, which was naturally that the Soviet Union should be disintegrated into its various ethnic components. If we move here to a different conflict, right now a lot of the attention of world media, but also other world leaders, is on what is happening in Gaza. Do you believe that the war in Gaza is hurting Ukraine's position in the fact that a little bit of this attention is simply directed into a new direction?
Well, first of all, there is no doubt that Russia is trying to use what's going on in Gaza, and I believe that Hamas acted with support of Russia. Well, as far as I know, Russian intelligence, Russian special services, they have always had very close relations with Hamas, and they were using these relations in their relations with the Western countries and Israel, of course. And I'm sure that Russians at least knew about this coming terrorist attack against Israel, but they didn't inform Israel about this, which makes me suspicious. And I think there is a hypothesis that they might have been a mastermind, even. They might have been behind this terrorist attack, because we should have expected something like that to happen. Putin is trying to open different fronts to distract attention away from his aggression against Ukraine. He is using situation in the Middle East, in the Balkans, in all possible places, because he's desperate. He's fighting for his skin. And in this regard, I'm sure that Russia has something at least to do with terrorism and Hamas.
Yeah. Yes, it seems that this axis, you could almost say, from Moscow to Tehran to Gaza, seems to be very strong between each and every of those parts. And maybe another proof of this could be that today the first male hostage to be released by Hamas was a Russian-Israeli citizen who apparently on Putin's own request was released by Hamas. So it seems to prove that the relations are close between the two. If we look a little bit to not the junior partner, but to the senior partner, as you mentioned earlier, China, there is also naturally the hypothesis that right now there is this competition between America and China for primacy in the world. There is the Thucydides trap, so to say, saying that there is a greater risk for war when there is a risk that one country could overtake another hegemonic country. Do you believe that China is right now trying to somehow take this advantage and maybe try to do something on its own in Taiwan, for example, or anywhere else with the Philippines in the South China Sea?
China has its own so-called grand strategy. And the first phase of this grand strategy, its implementation, is to become a regional hegemon, and then to become global hegemon by using its economic power, by becoming now its second world economy, but it has ambition to become number one economic power in the world. And of course, China and to its leader Xi Jinping, he will be trying to bring Taiwan under control of the Chinese Popular Republic. He will mainland China. He will be trying to do this. And to me, the most dangerous period right now is till the year 2027. This is when his new term in power ends, and he wants to go down in history as a Chinese leader who brought back Taiwan. He will be trying to do this. And I'm afraid that there might be coordination between Russia and China. I suspect that might have been from the very beginning a tacit agreement between two powers, between two countries in this regard. And it seems to me that at least diplomatically it's visible. They're trying to help each other in this way. So it might be a very dangerous situation for the whole world, because any disruption of order in the Taiwan Strait might have unpredictable results. It might lead to global conflict, and it's very dangerous for Ukraine, and it's also dangerous for the global security and what we know as the rules-based order for international law.
Yes, this relationship is certainly something people need to keep an eye on. We remember that President Xi Jinping and Putin, they met during the military build-up before the invasion, and famously President Xi Jinping said that there is no limit to the alliance or relationship between China and Russia. And quickly after the Olympics were over, the invasion started. Previously here we spoke about one concept of the Polish interwar leader Józef Piłsudski, about promotheism, meaning breaking up the Soviet Union into its component parts. But he had another as well, the so-called intermarium, which he tried to implement immediately after the First World War. It was basically an idea of building a large regional alliance, maybe even a confederation of states from Finland in the north to an independent Ukraine, Poland, and even further down south. Do you think that today there is an opportunity to try to create this regional coalition that is strong enough to stand up against not just Russia, but technically any power that would be willing to take away our sovereignty?
To me, it's a great idea, and it's a great geopolitical project. To tell you the truth, I have always been interested in Pilsudski's idea of między morzem, intermarium. Now we are talking about Trójmorze. I think it's very logical and geopolitically very rational and productive idea, which should be implemented. I believe that the core of this idea might be very close ties, maybe common market, maybe even confederation between, first of all, three states, Ukraine, Poland, and Lithuania, because we have common historical roots, but most importantly, we have common future, and when we stay together, we have already proved ourselves as very powerful force. We have already proved this politically. And economically, we can create very interesting and important organization. And of course, we should look at this in bigger terms. Not only these three countries, more countries who would like to join these. And at the same time, this concept, this geopolitical formation, in my opinion, should have very strong transatlantic ties with the United States. And we should rely on the United States as one of our closest friends and allies. And to me, this project makes a lot of sense. And I believe that future belongs to the implementation of this geopolitical idea.
As you mentioned, there are already some embryos, you could say, when it comes to Poland, Lithuania, and Ukraine. We have the so-called Lublin Triangle between the countries. We also remember that there was I think it was in 2019, when they found the remains of Kalinowski in Vilnius. He was a commander of the 1863-64 January revolution against Russia. And back then, even Belarus sent a representative to participate in this event when he was buried again in Vilnius. Naturally, after what happened in 2020 and 2022, right now relations with Belarus are impossible, but potentially in the future, with an independent and free Belarus, maybe this Lublin Triangle could be expanded to a Lublin 4, so to say. But returning to the Three Seas Initiative, or Trójmorze, the Polish name that you used, during the annual summit in Riga in 2022, Ukraine became a so-called participating partner. So now officially Ukraine is part of the project. And when the Polish President Andrzej Duda met with President Zelensky a little bit before the invasion, President Zelensky was mentioning that maybe there could be a railway, a high-speed railway built from Kiev to Warsaw in the framework of the Three Seas Initiative. Is the Three Seas Initiative something that people are starting to discuss in Ukraine currently?
Yes, and we've been discussing this project even before the full-scale invasion. We in the parliament even we had created a special group of members of parliament in support of this initiative uh, through Moja, Three Seas initiative. But because of the full-scale war, we sort of uh, put it on the back burner, so to speak. But I'm sure that um, we will return to this idea because it's very productive. And secondly, the war has proved that we need all these three countries and more countries. We need to implement this idea, of course. And you're absolutely right, there are good prospects for Belarus joining this initiative. And I'm sure that it's inevitable that Belarus will be free and democratic. And to me, the best sign of it is that the resistance of Belarusian people in Belarus after rigged elections of dictator Lukashenko. I was surprised to see full-scale revolution, popular revolution in Belarus, and to me is a sign that civic society in Belarus is already ready to make Belarus a democratic, European, free country.
Yes, and it's worth noting here as well that apart just from these so-called railway partisans that were making some problems for the Russian invasion initially, there has also been the Kalinovsky regiment, which together with the Georgians, I believe, is the most numerous contingent of foreign volunteer troops fighting on the Ukrainian side. A final question, when it comes to the continuation of the war, what do you believe is needed for a Russian, for a Russian defeat and a Ukrainian victory? What would the West need to do, but also what would Ukrainian society need to do to win the war?
Well, first of all, of course, we need in terms of quality and in terms of quantity, weaponry, the necessary weaponry, long range, because we're talking about war of attrition. And to win the war of attrition, we need long range missiles, military aircraft, and we also need constant support, economic support, because the truth is that next year there will be a huge deficit of budget, Ukrainian budget, up to 40 billion US dollars. And one third of our economy has been already destroyed by Russia, and Russia continues to destroy our economy, hoping to turn us into failed state. That's why we need constant support. As for Ukrainian society, we need, first of all, unity in political elites also. In my opinion, we should put away all political ambitions, all political disagreements, and in the face of mortal danger, in the face of ruthless enemy who is committing genocide against Ukrainian nation, we should be united. We should be united. Ukrainian society, Ukrainian political elites, and we should do everything to exert every effort to win the war. We are determined, we are motivated to defend ourselves, but we should be prepared for a marathon. The war has been continuing for almost 2 years, and we don't know for how many more years the war will drag on. But we should be prepared for that. And, the good thing is that we feel support of our friends, and there have been numerous times stated that the Western countries, our friends, will support us as long as it takes. But I would like to have ending for this phrase, as long as it takes to defeat Russia and for Ukraine to achieve victory.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Merezkho. I hope that in a couple of months we will be able to speak again, and that by then we will have F-16s flying over the skies of Ukraine and Taurus missiles also being available. Thank you very much for this conversation, and hope to see you again.